Pete, thanks for taking the time to speak to us. We speak on the eve of another football season. It's going to be like no other that we've had here at Stadium MK, but it is a football season nonetheless, and I know excitement's certainly building here at Stadium MK.
Oh, thank goodness we get to start a season. Anthony, it's been so long. I've even enjoyed the pre-season friendlies and things, just a chance to watch some football that has an emotional connection to us. But it's been a really, really turbulent time on and off the pitch. I think it's fair to say we've probably been through an extinction event. I know a lot of my peers got into terrible trouble. We've seen hotels close, places that have been around for years just not there anymore. And of course, we've been fighting really hard here at Stadium MK to make sure we're still playing in the games. And to be fair, that's where I can be so proud of what we're able to do, because even in this extinction world, we've been actually getting some events on. Obviously, being proud to do the TV darts and snooker that we still continue with. And really pleased to be able to have reported that, which gave us the hope over the summer that we will be able to survive this and we'll be able to cope with it. But I mean, let's not get right. It's nothing like what it should be. We're operating at half the capacity, at half the numbers, at half the position that we should be in. And of course, football doesn't work like a business at all, because actually, we're having to make redundancies and lay people off and change people's working environments in the main parts of the operating business. But in football, you have to have your 25 players and your managers and assistant managers and coaches and all your medical staff and sports. You have to have it. You've got to have your media people and your marketing people that are listening, talking to the corporates, the few of which that are still there ready to play. I mean, there is not that much you can do to a football club to change the costs. And with what we found last year, with carrying so many players, of course, it hit us particularly hard. And that's why I was really pleased to get to the summer. And although it was goodbye to a lot of people that we've had a long relationship with, and other players that you're really sad to see go, I have to admit that to get those players off the wage bill and to get the wage bill down into a more manageable level was a really important thing. And I think that's where Russ and Liam in recruitment are doing really well. And to date we've landed every one of our top targets, all the people that we wanted to get. But we didn't want to sell Reece. Now, you might say, well, if you sell Reece, you can just use that money, and everybody's got that opinion. But actually, Anthony, you can't, because having Reece here, I knew what we'd got. We all knew we'd got a goal scorer. If he's fit enough and he's playing, he's scoring goals, and that's worth that money that's going out on him. And if you end up in more trouble in January or by next year, you've got an asset you can sell that would probably only be worth more money, not less. So we didn't want to sell Reece, and the problem with selling Reece is that now we've got to replace him. And that's probably the challenge that we're facing. I'm watching Russ have that pressure for the first time, and I've got to be honest, I don't like him having that pressure, because it's not his fault that Reece Healy's gone. He's now got the challenge of how he's going to deal with it. But I can't just take the X money that comes in from Reece and put it out on the X money for another player. So we've got to be careful what we do. And I can see myself coming to I might have to say no to a few things that they all want to do. And I want to face that up. And I'm going to take responsibility for that, because I'm making sure that what we can do as a business is come through whatever stuff happens to us this year. And with our ace in our pack now gone, I have to protect some of that, because I can't suddenly replace it if something else happens. And, we have another lockdown or whatever. And Anthony, at this moment in time, as we go into the new season, that's still a real practical possibility. We really have no idea. I mean, it is so hard for our supporters, because they're watching some of our best players go. They don't know how they're going to get into the stadium and what the games are going to be. I mean, who'd be a football supporter? Well, I'm one too, and it's that worrying for me as well. But I feel relatively positive, because I know that the players we've got are what we want. I know we're very focused on the team that we're building. I'm watching the recruitment, and they all work. Everyone's going after the same players. Everyone's coming to me with a unitary of voice, and Andy as well. So I'm being asked straight questions. And, would I break the transfer record in COVID to sign a player? I'm looking you in the eye, and actually I would. Might even have. But if that doesn't land the player, that doesn't mean I'm going to spend more money. And I think we've got to get that balance. I need to be able to react to anything that happens between now and October the 15th, or whenever it is the end of the transfer window. And I need to be able to say yes to Russ as much as I can. But I need to warn everybody, Russ included. Andy, I can't say yes to everything, because unlike the last few years where maybe I did say yes to everything, I don't think it actually does us any good. I want to put some discipline in, but I'm also not saying if the right player comes up at the right time, we're not there able to bid for them, be in that market, be aggressive and do something. And we wouldn't have been in that position without Reece Healey going, so we just can't have it both ways. Overall, I'd still rather have Reece at the moment. If you'd have told me a week before that Reece was actually going to go, I wouldn't have said so, because we didn't want to sell him. But once a player wants to go, that's a whole different thing. When a player phones me up and says, Chairman, my future is probably not with your club and I've loved my time with you, I want to be able to go, I can't say no to that. And I don't care if that makes me a weak chairman. I'm a human being, they're human beings, and I think that respect that I show our players means that when I asked them all for a wage reduction last year, a deferral, every single one said yes. You just can't have it both ways. You either treat people fair as you wish to be treated yourself, or you don't. And this club, while I'm in charge, will treat people fair. And again, I'm sorry for the chaos that causes all of us, but that's football. You never know what happens. We might get somebody in that plays more games and scores more goals this year. Everything is possible, and we're there right in all of those games. So as I say, everything to look forward to this season, but the most important thing is we're back on the pitch. That's the most important thing. Let's see how we can do. Let's get behind Russ. Let's take the pressure off Russ trying to cope. We all know that this is a challenge we weren't expecting. We can all live with that. We've been around this club, ups and downs. Nearly all of our supporters this is the journey. All I can tell you is the commitment remains. Our ambition remains. But it needs to be restrained in this year of COVID. It needs to be the right deal at the right price for the right player, because it works in our team and they're going in our first 11. When we find those players, we will react. If we don't find them, we will use our squad, which is already good and will only be added to over the next few weeks.
I think you've been very honest there, Pete, and we've spoken a lot during lockdown about the uncertainty of all this, and like you said, the big victory mainly is that we're in a position to play football again. I just want to touch on the supporters, because I think a lot of the frustration and a lot of the disappointment that's come is obviously naturally seeing someone like Alex Gilbey leave, who was their player of the year, and Reece Healey, their top goal scorer, leave. And the messages coming from the club is that we'd be strong through this, we'd be stronger than most businesses, and then they see two players leave and not necessarily players come straight in the door. And as you said, it might be a case that there's not necessarily big money players that come through the door to replace them. Can you understand why there's an element of frustration?
It's the same frustration I feel. I will make a distinction between Alex and Reece. I'm very disappointed to see Alex go. I had a very strong personal relationship with Alex over the years. But again, when I spoke to Alex and he explained to me he was getting a really big deal at Charlton, it's a 3-year deal. I didn't feel it was possible for our club, with the wage structure we have, with the salary cap coming on, that we can give that kind of money over a 3-year period to a player. I had to let him go at that point, and it was about getting the best deal that we can. Alex Gilbey plays in a position which we should be able to replace over time. We have lots of opportunities to be able to do that. There's lots of players around in those kind of positions. Whether they can be as good as Alex, whether they can win a Player of the Year, well, that's still to be seen. But Reece was a different thing. We didn't want to sell Reece, and it's put this ridiculous pressure on my new young manager. This just had to fight relegation. Now he has to fight losing his best player, most leading goal scorer, a week before the season starts. But it's what happens in football. We've got players that we've identified that we're looking at. I can tell you. Well, I shouldn't be telling you because I don't like to say, but we have made bids on players, and we've made pretty big bids on players, but they're not going to be ridiculous bids on players. It isn't going to be like for like. No. As I say, we're still here fighting with our heads well above the water, but our football club's going backwards by hundreds of thousands of pounds a month, every month, going backwards. Now, we can cope with it going backwards for a bit, and that's how we're working, and that's why we're under no threat. But we're going backwards. You've got to catch that up at some point. Now we haven't gone quite as far backwards. That's a position I should be maintaining. If I was advising me, I'd be saying don't do anything, Pete. But it's not business, Anthony. This is football. Football's about emotion. It's about keeping people engaged. It's about giving people something to be excited about. And that's why you have to break all your business rules and you go and do something when you shouldn't do anything at all. We are going to do something. We'd even potentially break our transfer record for the right player. But it's not going to be bigger than that.